How does a guy go from snoozing in his desk chair to being nearly eaten by a hideous sea monster?
Hey, me son! You barnacle sea beast!
It's a good thing he's strong to the finish because he eats his spinach, isn't it? Popeye the Sailor Man is a cult classic from the golden age of animation. And that's why today we're gonna be covering his entire story, well, from the 1960s anyway, starting with the first episode of the series, Hits and Missiles. It's Visitor's Day down at the space launching base, and guess who shows up to take the tour? Popeye the Sailor Man, of course, but it's not just him. Tagging alongside is his best friend in the whole wide world, Wimpy, and Popeye's girlfriend, Olive Oil. While at the space base, the trio are treated to a guided tour of Luna number 1, the most advanced spacecraft in the world. You guys should know, this cartoon actually aired before we went to the moon. It's that old. Now, when you're around a craft like this, you should probably, be sensible. Wimpy clearly doesn't get that memo though, as he starts frying eggs out of nowhere because he's hungry. And as you guys have probably realized, it doesn't exactly end well. Yep. Thanks to Wimpy not being able to control his hunger, the rocket ship is now suddenly blasting off into space with all three of them on board. Who needs Neil Armstrong when you've got Popeye and his strong arms? Anyways, the gang crash lands on a planet made entirely of cheese, which Olive figures has to be the moon. A bunch of little cheesy men come and take the trio to their ruler. His name is the Big Cheese, and let's just say he lives up to his name. At first, he pretends that he's a nice guy, but before they know it, the gang are thrown into the cheese dungeon, and that's the last straw for Popeye. Out comes his famous spinach can, which gives him superhuman strength, and he busts out of cheese jail to give his new fromage foes a good old-fashioned beating. Think of Popeye's spinach like making Hulk angry. As soon as you see green, it's game over. So Popeye is an old cartoon with hundreds of episodes, and most don't really contribute to his story at all. 90% of the episodes are just funny shorts like we've seen. But episode 2 sees the debut of a pretty important character, Brutus. He's Popeye's arch rival, an evil, strong sailor man who's always a thorn in Popeye's side. We actually see him showing his strength as a strongman at the carnival, flexing for the crowd. And it just so happens that Popeye and Olive are also at the carnival. Let's just say Olive is liking what she's seeing from Brutus. He's swinging around a super huge dumbbell, yet Popeye smells something fishy, since he knows Brutus is strong, but not that strong. And when he sees Brutus lift the weights with his mouth, the jig is up.
Watch this, Olive. You ain't the strongest man in the world.
The whole weight was actually a balloon. Busted. But Brutus is a sneaky one, and he flips the script by daring Popeye to lift a different set of weights. Only these ones are bolted right to the stage. So, naturally, Popeye can't budge them an inch and winds up looking like a fool in front of the whole crowd. When it finally clicks that he's been played, Popeye is ready to tear the guy limb from limb. But Olive makes him promise no fighting. He agrees, but Brutus doesn't hold back, going from one extreme to the next to humiliate or hurt Popeye. And when a cement mixer is about to be involved, well, let's just say Popeye can't hold back any longer and puts Brutus in his place. He might be hurt now, but I know Brutus will be back. I thought that was a nice introduction to the main villain of the series. I mean, you'd have to be blind not to see how evil that jerk is. We've got to do a little jump to find the next episode on our list, and that's episode 11's Abominable Snowman. And no, I didn't say it wrong. It gets underway with Popeye and Olive swinging by to visit her uncle Sylvan Oil, a big game hunter with a whole collection of exotic beasts on display over at the Explorers Club. One of Sylvan's displays is empty, and it's pretty big. He explains that he's saving this display for the rarest creature of them all, the abominable snowman. No ordinary guy or gal can catch a monster like that, but Popeye is no regular guy or gal. That's basically waving a red flag at a bull as far as Popeye is concerned. So of course he wants a chance at capturing the mighty beast. Both the Oils try to talk him out of it, but it's no use, and off they head up to the Himalayas to try and see if they can find the elusive snowman. They spot the Yeti off in the distance, so Popeye gives chase and ends up tumbling down into an icy cavern surrounded by enormous Yetis. Yeah, plural. He starts throwing haymakers, but his punches do absolutely nothing except shake loose a pile of icicles right onto his head. That's when he meets Harry, a tiny little talking Yeti who happens to be the actual abominable snowman. Harry explains those giant Yetis were only reflections in the ice, a clever trick the shy little guys use to scare off intruders. Popeye realizes he could never turn such a sweet little fella into a trophy, so Harry hooks him up with a big stuffed Yeti doll from his souvenir shop instead. On his way out, Popeye even slips Harry a spinach lollipop, which bulks the little guy right up. Back home, Sylvan proudly unveils his big discovery to the
The
Oh,
abominable snowman.
Help! The monster!
I can see why that's one of the highest rated episodes in the show's history. It's fun and heartwarming, even 60 years on. The next episode we'll cover is Seeing Double, and it starts with Olive eyeing a pretty expensive mink fur coat. Have a guess how much that bad boy costs? $2,000, which in today's money is 59 grand. While Olive is probably in the process of remortgaging her house, across town, a mad scientist and his henchmen are cooking up some trouble. They've built a mechanical man that's a dead ringer for Popeye, and with a robot Popeye doing his bidding, this scientist figures he can pull off just about anything. So, how do you put that to the test? Well, by robbing a bank, of course. 3 guesses who takes the fall? That's right. The real Popeye gets thrown behind bars for a crime he didn't commit, swearing up and down that he's innocent and dead set on proving it. So, Popeye busts himself out of the slammer, setting his sights on the scientist and his crew, and when he catches up with them, it sure ain't pretty. He sends the whole crew flying straight into the back of a waiting police van. Then it's time for the main event, because Popeye has his mechanical twin to take down too. And of course, he'd be no match for the robot without his spinach. He gulps the green stuff down and smashes the machine into a bucket of bolts. Luckily for him, the police captain was on hand to watch Popeye catch the criminals and destroy the evil machine. And you'll never guess what he gets as a reward. $2,000. And like the good man he is, he spends every penny on Olive, getting her that mink coat she wanted. Now, considering he's called Popeye the Sailor Man, we've actually not seen him on the open water once yet. Well, that changes in the episode Hagway Robbery, where our titular sailor man is on a rescue mission. The sea hag has gone and kidnapped Eugene the Jeep. That might sound like a load of mumbo jumbo, but the sea hag is basically the witch of the ocean, and Eugene the Jeep is, well, he's Popeye and Olive's weird pet. I say weird because he kind of gives me the creeps. What kind of animal even is this thing? Anyway, tagging along with Popeye is of course Olive, Wimpy, and Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea might look a lot like Popeye, but that's not his son. In fact, it's not Olive's son either, but the pair have adopted the little guy. I mean, I'm not sure I'd bring a baby on a dangerous adventure, but who am I to talk? While everyone is getting comfy on the open sea, the sea hag has been watching them from afar and figured out where Popeye keeps his can of spinach. So, she swipes the spinach cans and slaps the spinach labels onto all the other tins. Meaning, when Popeye goes to open a can of the good stuff, he won't get any of his powers.
Spinach. Hamburgers.
Thank you. Don't mind if I do.
But Wimpy will get a snack. Luckily for the gang though, the sea hag has run out of fuel on her submarine, and the only way she can move through the water is to start burning that spinach she stole. Popeye catches one whiff of that roasting spinach and his strength comes roaring back, jumping into action to save Eugene. He doesn't hurt the old hag though. Instead, he drops her off at a tropical island so she'll learn her lesson. Bad chance of that, but it's a nice thought. Now it's time to meet the other set of foes Popeye usually has to tackle, and they appear in Goon with the Wind. Look, that word meant something a lot different 60 years ago. Anyway, Popeye and Olive are enjoying a nice, quiet sailing trip when everything goes sideways, and Olive gets snatched right off the boat by an entire tribe of goons, a group of big, lumpy creatures who decide on the spot that she is going to be their brand new queen. Obviously wanting to get his girl back, Popeye tracks them down to Goon Island, but there's no hero's welcome waiting for him. The goons grab him the second he sets foot on shore and lock him up tight in a cage. Things are looking pretty grim. and they get worse fast, because Olive is about to be married off to the Goon King himself whether she likes it or not. Hey, those goons move fast when it comes to love. But just before those wedding bells can ring, Olive manages to sneak Popeye a can of spinach through the bars. And that, as they say, is all she wrote. One big gulp, and Popeye busts clean out of that cage, plows through the entire goon population, and yanks Olive back from a future of Goonie marriage. It's short, sweet, and it delivers exactly what the title promises. Sometimes that's all you need. Episode 44 is another doozy, because that mean old witch is back. I guess the sea hag didn't learn her lesson after all. The episode opens up on Popeye enjoying a nice relaxing shower when a distress call comes in from Phony Island. He throws his clothes on in a hurry, gets scooped up by a pilot, and is handed a parachute to land on the island. The only problem is he doesn't actually realize he's wearing a parachute until it's a little too late, and he makes a crash landing. Luckily though, thanks to a soft island tree, he manages to bounce back up into the air where he remembers his parachute, deploying it just in time to land safely. Once he's finally on the ground, he runs into Chief Knucklebone, who is the leader of another island nation, and he's all by himself. When Popeye asks where everybody went, the chief tells him the volcano ordered them to leave. A talking volcano. Something smells fishy here, and sure enough, this is all the sea hag's handiwork. Her grand scheme is to scare every last native off the island and turn Phony Island into a fancy, high-priced hideaway resort for villains, with herself playing the role of some all-powerful god from the deep speaking through the volcano. Popeye heads off to investigate this so-called talking volcano, and the sea hag sends her pet vulture Bernard swooping in to attack him. It does not go her way, not even close. Now, I know what you're thinking. How the hell does Popeye manage to get some spinach on a remote island? Well, it is a vegetable after all. He eats the strong spinach, deals with the hag and her bird, and saves not only the chief, but Phony Island from a capitalist nightmare. Remember a couple episodes ago we met Eugene the Jeep and Sweet Pea? Well, they're back again in the episode Jeep Jeep, and the pair have struck up a pretty sweet friendship. But you know why Eugene is such a good pet? He can see into the future. Now, that is one handy skill, and you know who'd love a pet that can see into the future? Brutus. Yep, he's back, and not without help, because the sea hag also wants to get her grubby mitts on Eugene. Their big brilliant plan is to grab Sweet Pea first so they can lure Eugene right to them. Here's the thing though, Popeye knows what Brutus and the hag are up to, and he also knows that Eugene is pretty capable of looking after himself, and he's not wrong. After the evil pair take Eugene, they demand he makes a treasure map, looking into the future to see where it's buried. But the map he makes just sends them on a wild goose chase. By plane, by train, slogging through swamps, baking out in the desert, only to dig their way straight down into a jail cell at the very end of it. The best part is Popeye barely has to get out of his chair the whole time. Now that is how you handle your enemies, folks. Let them do all the work. The next episode on our list, Blinkin' Beacon, is a little more atmospheric, and this time the sea hag means business. It's a dark and stormy night out at Popeye's Lighthouse, and we're jumping right into the deep end, because behind Popeye's back, the old hag has already taken Sweet Pea. All she wants in return for the kid is for Popeye to switch his super bright light off. Obviously, he's not going to be pushed around by some wrinkly old witch, so he calls her bluff. Then, the sea hag cranks things up a notch, prowling around in her submarine and ordering her vulture to drop depth bombs on Popeye. Poor little Sweet Pea, chained up the whole time. Even pulls the big dramatic, do what you want with me, but spare good old honest Popeye the Sailor routine. It is all wonderfully over the top for a cartoon that runs for like 5 minutes, but you already know how this story goes. The sea hag is no match for our guy. Popeye keeps that beacon burning bright through the entire storm, and thanks to that trusty spinach, the sailor man kicks the sea hag to the curb, managing to rescue Sweet Pea along the way. I mean, this guy sure as hell gets around, doesn't he? One minute he's in space, then on some tropical island, and now he has his own lighthouse. He really knows how to live. After a brief break, Popeye is back battling against those weird critters in Valley of the Goons. I guess this time though, they've got themselves a valley instead of an island. It's also yet another rescue mission, but in my opinion, it's one of a very different flavor. Popeye discovers that a crew of ruthless pirates, is scheming to hunt down his old goony friends for their skins, planning to sell them off as fancy goon skin clothing of all things. Popeye might have not seen eye to eye with the goons in the past, but he won't stand and watch other people suffer. So he makes it his personal mission to shut the whole operation down and protect the goons. The pirates, figuring they could use some extra muscle for the job, go ahead and kidnap Popeye onto their ship. As you can imagine, they're gonna live to regret that. Popeye breaks himself out of the brig, gets the goons their much needed spinach, and together, the whole crew boots those poaching pirates right out of town. The next episode we're covering, Me Quest for Poop Deck Papy, is one of the rare occasions we actually get some more story about Popeye. You see, Popeye and his dad haven't really seen each other ever. Poop Deck Papy was supposedly lost at sea sometime before Popeye was born, and part of the reason Popeye wanted to become a sailor is to look for his dad. So that's kind of what this episode is all about. After months of searching high and low, Popeye finally lands a sighting of someone he thought was most likely dead. He races toward a mystery island, where he finally finds his dad, but Poop Deck Papy isn't exactly welcoming of the sailor.
Tear him apart!
Nothing says, "I love you, son," more than a huge gorilla attacking you. If that wasn't bad enough, then Papy calls on Charlie, a massive black octopus, to finish the job. But thanks to Popeye's smoky pipe, Charlie is sent back down to the ocean blue. The two tough old salts finally come face to face, and Popeye is insisting up and down that they are father and son. I mean, they look nothing alike. Papy isn't buying it for a second though. He even tests Popeye out with a punch. But their little family squabble gets rudely interrupted by the sea monster that's forever terrorizing the island. It snatches up Popeye and knocks his spinach can clean off. Quick as a flash, Papy lunges for it, gulps the spinach down himself, and clobbers the beast to save his son. That shared love of spinach is all the proof either of them needs that they really are flesh and blood, and the two finally bury the hatchet. Would you look at that? 10 years in therapy saved by a 5-minute cartoon. And boy, the lore-filled episodes don't stop there. This time, it's the Sea Hag's turn in Moby Hick, where we find out that the Sea Hag is guilty of more than annoying Popeye. It turns out she stole some pretty valuable treasures back in the day from a seaman's orphanage that was being used to keep the doors open. But as karma would have it, she fumbled the goods overboard, where it got gobbled right up by an enormous green whale by the name of Moby Hick. Now she wants that loot back in her hands. The hag has a fearsome reputation too, clearing out an entire bar full of grizzled sailors by just strolling through the door. But the moment she lays eyes on Popeye, she spots a guy she can put to work. I always loved that about old cartoons. Whenever they'd meet villains in an episode, it was like the first time they've ever met. Anyway, the old witch spins a sob story to Popeye. Yeah, she might have a reputation of being mean, but she isn't like that anymore. This time, she's turned over a whole new leaf, and she needs his help getting something special from a terrifying sea monster. And like an idiot, Popeye buys the whole act, his usual villain radar failing him for once. She cons him into going after the whale, but here's where Popeye's gut instinct comes roaring back to life. One good long look at Moby Hick, and he can tell right away that this big green giant is no rampaging sea monster at all. He's a total sweetheart. Popeye sees clean through the hag's scheme, and that orphanage treasure ends up exactly where it was always supposed to be. Nice try, Sea Hag. Better luck next week. And that, folks, is a wrap on season 1. There's actually over 150 episodes in the first season, and while a lot of them are pretty formulaic adventures, I think the ones we've covered so far have been a nice mix between lore-filled and those fan favorites. But time waits for no man. So let's head on over to season 2 and the first episode I wanted to cover, Mystery Melody. This one kicks off with Poop Deck Papy in an absolute panic over a mysterious flute melody drifting through the air. Funny thing is, Popeye and Olive can't hear a single note of it at first, so naturally they figure the old man has finally lost his marbles. But Papy sits them down and spills the whole story. Way back in his younger days, he fell head over heels for a beautiful young woman, a real jewel of the sea, who did everything she could to sweep him off his feet. Trouble was, she turned out to be the Sea Hag in disguise, and the second Papy figured out who he was really dealing with, he bolted for the hills. The hag being the hag, swore that one day she would get her revenge. Because when doesn't she? Is it even a Popeye episode without the hag causing carnage? Anyway, it looks like the day for revenge has finally arrived. The hag has dug up a haunting flute melody with the power to hypnotize Papy and reel him right into her clutches. Once Popeye and Olive do finally hear the spooky little tune for themselves, poor Papy slips into a deep trance and goes wandering off, drawn like a magnet toward the dungeon of a far-off castle. With his old man marching straight into a trap, Popeye has to call in some backup, and that means enlisting the one and only Eugene the Jeep to help pull off the rescue.
Stop those sparks!
See, he's useful for more than just getting kidnapped. With Eugene keeping the old hag busy, Popeye's got a perfect opportunity to save his Papy, who's being kept in her castle dungeon. Now, most people would try and find a key or something, but not Popeye. He just pushes the castle walls right over without breaking a sweat, rescuing Papy and, once again, getting the better of that evil sea hag. It's been a while since we saw Wimpy on our screen, so let's turn to an episode that's all about him. As you guys know, if there's one thing in this world Wimpy loves more than life itself, it's a hamburger. And this episode cranks that obsession to 11. You'll never guess who's behind this weird obsession. Of course, the sea hag. She's got Wimpy hopelessly hooked on her hamburgers. Popeye does what any good friend would do and calls Wimpy out for being an addict. Stung by the accusation, Wimpy dramatically swears off hamburgers for good, and that lasts for about 5.3 nanoseconds before he's back at the meaty snacks. Popeye has no choice but to literally send him into rehab for a burger addiction. Naturally, the sea hag cannot resist sticking her wrinkled nose in, sneaking into Wimpy's room dressed as a nurse. She manages to kidnap him and takes him back to hamburger heaven where he can eat himself to death. Only this time, it's not burgers that he eats. Oh no, this time he's got a taste for something a little more healthy. He beats the witch at her own game and sends her packing. Obviously, to celebrate his victory, he keeps back and enjoys a tower of burgers. I guess some things never change. Then, in a poil for olive oil, it's Olive's birthday. So, to celebrate, Popeye takes her out shopping to pick out whatever gift her heart desires. She sets her sights on a lovely pearl necklace, which is all well and good right up until Popeye gets a look at the price tag. Rather than fork over that kind of cash, our resourceful sailor decides he'll just go harvest the pearls himself straight from the source. So down into the ocean he dives, and sure enough, he finds the oyster beds absolutely loaded with the good stuff. There's just one little snag. The sea hag shows up to inform Popeye that these particular pearls happen to belong to her, and she orders her dogfish to chase him off. Thinking fast, Popeye calls in a catfish to spook off the dogfish. Next, a whole squadron of swordfish races after him, and that's when Olive jumps into the action, downing some spinach and slugging the sea hag so hard, the old witch rockets clean down to the ocean floor. Man, I'm starting to feel sorry for the sea hag. She's getting beaten up by everyone in town. Finally, Popeye deals with the swordfish thanks to a little help from some electric eels, then goes looking for Olive, only to find her wedged in the very hole she punched, having socked the hag so hard she's probably halfway to China by now. I guess getting rid of the sea hag is a pretty neat birthday gift. But to be fair, Popeye's got a better gift for Olive, a homemade pearl necklace. Now, ain't that cute? Now, the next episode I wanted to make sure we included today is the Whiffle Bird's Revenge, because it's not your usual Popeye episode. It opens at the Rough House Cafe, where Popeye finally puts his foot down and flat out refuses to let Wimpy mooch yet another free meal off him. So a hungry, sulking Wimpy goes wandering through the park, where he spots a plump, tasty-looking bird and immediately starts dreaming about turning the poor thing into a hamburger. Big mistake. That bird happens to be Bernice the Whiffle Bird, and she does not take kindly to being eyed up as somebody's lunch. In a fury, she slaps a curse on poor Wimpy, so that every single time he hears or says the word hamburger, he transforms into a vicious werewolf like this.
Testing hamburger.
Word of the mysterious werewolf quickly reaches the cafe, and before long, the beast attacks the place itself, sending Popeye into the chase. Once Popeye realizes his furry foe is actually Wimpy, he begs Bernice to lift the curse. She agrees, but only on one condition. Popeye has to hold Wimpy perfectly still long enough for her to work. After a bit of spinach and some roughhousing, Popeye manages to keep him still long enough for Bernice to undo her magic. With everything back to normal, Wimpy wastes no time trying to score another meal, only for Popeye to clamp a hand over his mouth before he can blurt out his favorite word, just in case that curse hasn't completely worn off yet. Better safe than sorry. Next on the list is Toothbee or Not Toothbee, where Popeye leaves Papy on babysitting duty with Sweetpea, and the timing could not possibly be worse, because the little guy's very first tooth is just about to break through. And boy, does he put that brand new chomper to work, gnawing his way clean through a rattle, the phone book, and even a table leg. After a quick trip to the dentist to settle things down, the two head home, where Sweetpea happily plops down to chew on an entire tire. Yeah, you heard me. To pass the time, Papy launches into a tall tale about the glory days when he earned himself the prestigious title of Mr. Teeth. Wow. Super prestigious. As Papy tells it, the sea hag was so green with envy over his magnificent teeth that she sent her vulture to kidnap him, scheming to yank those pearly whites right out of his head. But you don't get crowned Mr. Teeth for nothing. Papy chewed clean through the ropes tying him down and made a break for it. And even after getting recaptured, every single attempt the hag made to pry his teeth loose came up empty. In the end, he simply bit the vulture into submission and flew off to freedom on its back. All thanks to those mighty molars. By the time Papy finishes up his story, Popeye strolls home to find the old man fast asleep, while Sweetpea is brushing his first tooth.
They'll last to the finish if he eats his spinach and brushes them twice a day.
And that's all we've got for Popeye today, guys. If you get the chance, I'd 100% recommend watching the full series. Even if you just watch the Wiffle Bird episode, it'll be worth it. In the meantime, feel free to click the link on the screen to watch another one of my videos. Peace.